All right, we are finally live. Sorry, guys, I couldn't get out of the network fast enough, and apparently they didn't want to let me go.
Hey.
Yeah, you gotta love it when you go to clock out of work and they're like, no, you get to stay a little while longer.
Absolutely. Yeah, everyone loves that.
Yes, it even happens to me.
Yes.
It's been a busy week. Now, granted, this was my first weekend trip since mid-March. Actually, no,
Mm-hmm.
February. Yeah, we didn't do a weekend trip in March.
I thought we did one right there at the very, very beginning of March, right before everything shut down.
Mm-mm.
No. Okay.
No, it was a day trip.
Okay.
Yeah, but because I've been going, what am I going to use for a tax write-off? Because we can't use hotels.
You know?
I know.
Hi, Brenda. And thank you so much again for the cheesecake. It is amazing.
Yes, it is. It is delicious, and I have the recipe to be printed off. And we have the spring form to make it. But it is delicious.
It was. Or is. We haven't quite killed it yet.
It's getting
We've
there.
tried. It's getting there quickly.
Yes.
But yes, it was amazing. And for those of you who don't know, because this may be your first episode or you didn't catch the post online, so Brenda has been teasing us with cheesecake. And so she met us on Sunday with this beautiful, gorgeous, amazing cheesecake.
That's thick.
Yes. It is big. Yeah. Like I was like, I thought it would be like a cute cheesecake. You know what I mean? Like that, and my cheesecakes always come out shorties. So yeah, that was like unexpected, totally unexpected.
Yes.
In terms of like, that's a cheesecake.
Uh-huh.
That's where I was.
And a cannoli recipe, and we will be in happy dessert land.
I've never been all that big on cannolis. Like, you're big on them. You love them. You think they're amazing. And I'm like, okay, cannolis are great.
No, they're amazing. Especially if they're made traditional. There is this little restaurant up in Cleveland that is owned by this little Italian lady, and her cannolis alone are worth the trip.
Awesome. We will have to, after this is all over, check that out. Oh yeah, I can see why. Totally see why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now my cheesecakes only get like one invite, and then they're like,
That's okay.
Well, okay, because I don't bake a lot of cheesecakes. Like, that was a mom thing. That was a thing my mother did a fair number of, and she was really good at it. And by the time I actually got back into like make a cheesecake, it was because I had an Instapot. And that recipe is kind of a bad idea. Like, it's cheesecake, it's edible, it's a thing, but it comes out weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Brenda, if I find a great recipe for it, I will definitely share it with you. I don't know. This may be the lead up into the coffee shop cookbook.
Yeah, really?
Mm-hmm.
That could be awesome.
I know. A lot of side projects, a lot of side ideas now that we're home. Have been bouncing around in our head.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting. It was an interesting weekend. We are following all COVID-19 things. We wore a mask. We done everything we can.
Oh, she bought the pan for the Instapot. Woo. I can understand. I did too. I was all excited. I have a lot of Instapot accessories. That, to be honest, we don't use them all, but my favorite one has been the stupid little egg holder. It is so stupid. But it is perfect. And if you think you suck at hard-boiled eggs, I swear to God, you cannot screw this up. It is a 5-5-5. Instapot recipe, which means you basically add your eggs in water. That's it. And, in your nice little stacked thing. And it's 5 minutes of manual high pressure. It is a 5-minute natural release, and then it is a 5-minute cold water bath. And you get absolutely perfect, almost zero loss hard-boiled eggs that peel easily.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Where has that been all my life? Do what now?
Unless your eggs are fresh. Don't ever use fresh eggs for hard-boiled eggs.
Oh, no. Well, but sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes you just have to do it.
Yes, you can. If you go to the store and get eggs, they aren't fresh. I promise you're at least a week old.
Oh, well, in that case, sorry. I thought you were meaning not like fresh. Straight from the store and home.
Hi, Shannon. Guess what came?
Yes, you are so excited.
Yes, we will be doing it. As things collapse around me. Yay! I have my own now.
Oh. Yeah, upside down. There you go.
There you go. Yay! So expect a video on this. As you see, I haven't opened it yet. We'll open it together.
Yeah, can I just say that was like horrible timing yesterday. And hello, Emily. Yay, we have an Emily with us this evening. So yeah, that was horrible timing. I had a client call scheduled for dead on 2:30. And just as I'm about to dial, I hear the scurrying of the UPS guy, and I open the door because I'm expecting one little teeny tiny envelope for a client package. And I opened the door, and it looked like someone just it looked like a UPS truck took a dump. It did. It just looked like it backed up to our porch and crapped. And I was like, what did you do?
And I'm like, oh, I see the Walmart delivery has arrived.
Yeah, really? Walmart or Amazon? Was that? What all was that? I didn't even have time to deal with it. I just grabbed my envelope out of it and was like, honey!
That was the wet cat food, the wet dog food, the dry dog food, the dry cat food, the shampoo, the conditioner,
the hair products. Order.
Huh?
You said Walmart. That was Amazon.
Yeah. It replaced the Walmart order.
Oh, yeah.
Now it gets delivered to our door, and it costs us about half as much.
Yeah, so Emily would love to know what Ipsy is.
Ipsy is a subscription service for high-level makeup at a cheap price.
Nice.
Yes, and we are very happy with our makeup.
But awesome. But no, it was crazy. I then had to call the client, and it was hilarious because she had totally forgotten about the appointment.
Uh-huh.
It was just one of those client calls that it's like, oh, thank God, I'm not the only one struggling. Because the other part of this, and I don't think this other client watches this, I had totally spaced on the envelope until I realized there's a UPS truck, and I went, UPS, Monday. Oh, God, I forgot. But, yeah, and then, I don't know, that was Monday for me in general. I don't know if everyone else's Monday went like that, but Monday was just like the day of reschedule.
My Monday was like, okay, it's Monday, let me recover.
Well, that's true. You did very much a recovery Monday, but my Monday was like the day of rescheduling.
Mm-hmm.
No one was prepared. Everyone was like, oh, God, not today. I can't do this today.
Well, see, that's why I rarely book any appointments on Mondays. Mondays is normally my catch-up and book day. But no, we should have we will have tarot and makeup video. It may be tomorrow. It may end up being Saturday, depending on how things go. So when you check out the Ipsy box, we do have a deck to talk about, because we did get the Lost Souls Oracle, Past Lives Oracle deck in.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
Yeah, that's going to be a fun review.
Yeah, I think that will be a separate video by itself, so you guys should be getting some good content out. We're still waiting for some things from Wish to arrive.
Yep.
It's somewhere, tied up in LA or, New York.
Typically New York. Most Wish shipments come in through New York.
Yeah, and the Port Authority up there have been very busy.
Yeah, they have. They very much have. But that's kind of Wish ordering in general. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very appropriately named service for you wish it would hurry the fuck up and get here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's where I've ended up with it. Like, I had a moment there when I first started ordering with Wish, and I'm like, why is this called Wish? And then I ordered from Wish, and I was like, oh, got it now.
Sorry, I like a Wish. I like a Wish very well.
Yeah. It's just sometimes you wish you would get the hell out of New York. Like, can you let my package go? Let my package go.
I don't think Governor Cuomo is going to be putting up with that. No. He is not taking prisoners right now. If you guys have not seen any of his news briefings, they are fabulous.
Oh, yes. Well, and right now I totally get it. Like, right now, I think the entire world is back to 6 to 8 weeks. That's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we're there. I think we've gone from 2-day shipping. Like, I have 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's just stupid. Or being ticked off because our 2-day shipment had a 1-day, stocking whatever delay, and now it's going to be here on, Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think... honestly, right now, if you're calling to bitch out Amazon about anything, please stop.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't.
Although...
I can't do it right now. The best I can do is the occasional chat of hi, my package said it shipped a month ago, and it hasn't moved. Is it lost? That's the most I can muster right now for bitching out Amazon. And to be honest, I used to be the guy that was it's supposed to be here Tuesday. It is now Wednesday. Where my stuff at? Instantaneously, I'm on the phone.
Mm-hmm. But
exactly. Now we're happy they get here.
Right. But if you find yourself buying the same products month after month after month, here's a suggestion. Amazon will automatically ship it to you. You get 15% off the product. They are very happy with that. Of course, if you have Prime, you get free shipping. So go for it.
Sorry, I'm having fun reading the comments. So Shannon said your package isn't the Jews in Egypt with Moses. Sorry. And so then Emily threw in, they're using Moses's GPS tracking.
Well, that's what I would call some of this Chinese tracking, because it's literally pinpoint where it's at on which plane.
Well, you run into some issues there, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem sometimes with international product and getting it through all the things it has to go through, is that you're dealing with totally different postal systems, and a shipping carrier and a port authority and a language barrier, and some of these systems don't really integrate all that well, and then you have the time difference,
right?
And it can be a lot.
Yeah.
It can just end up being a lot to go through that. Meanwhile, how upset should we be? We can literally get stuff here within just a few weeks from the other side of the world. for like $3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how upset should we be? How upset should we be?
Well, I'm not even upset. I just find it kind of funny at times.
Oh, yes, it's absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
But there are moments when it's like you're sitting there watching stuff sitting at the Port Authority,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, it's been like 3 weeks. Let it go. Like, what is going on here? Like, what occurred?
Well, what's occurring is the Port Authority is also right now, especially coming out of New York, because New York's governor has said, you come into New York, you have to give us documentation of where you are headed. And you have to verify that you are there, and that you're going to quarantine for 2 months. And if you leave and you don't fill out your form, or you don't do it online, we're going to fine you $2,000, and you may spend up to 10 days in jail.
Well, there is that, and that is amazing. But yeah, I mean, New York's been on top of the ball from the beginning. Like, Cuomo's been amazing from the beginning. He doesn't seem to give a shit in terms of, like, you're not going to make him do anything.
Well,
like, that's it. You're not going to do it.
This morning, I got starting to dig into how much federal funding does the state get versus how much federal funding the state gives. The state of New York gives a lot more to the federal government than the federal government gives New York. State of California, same thing. They're not getting a lot of federal funding. They, however, are giving a lot of federal money.
Well, right. And that's a large part of, like, the Southern ideal of, like, you know, when we start hearing those kind of ruminations on, you know, a second civil war and seceding, like, you want to balance the federal budget, go ahead. Because the savings alone, like, we don't even care financially. Federal level, the finances for the South, like, there is so much money going into the South. It's just cute. You think you can support yourself. Like, we don't know how you're going to do it. You haven't been able to so far.
Right.
But, you know.
Although there are hints within Cuomo speaking that he is like, why do we have a federal government? They can't even help us get testing swabs.
Which is a fair point right now. Well, and I think everyone needs to be there on that point. Is like, this is not how a pandemic and epidemic should happen.
No.
Not at a government response level. And we should have seen it coming. We should have looked at Flint, Michigan. We should have looked at Puerto Rico. We should have looked at Katrina. And I'm going across multiple presidencies there. Not just this one. This one, I think, has avoided even, like, acknowledging it, like, truthfully, honestly, and trying. And I think that's the worst part of it. Or moreover has gone, well, but the economy, we really got to fix that, and that's more important. So grandma and your kids can die.
Well,
have a great life.
But we're seeing, however, different governors step the hell up. And we're seeing who has backbones. I mean,
well, we're seeing how far, like, this party. Well, but we're actually more so seeing how far party allegiance and bullying is going to push this. And it did, and I think it's created some massive disasters.
Oh, I think it's more than create massive disasters. I think it's starting to show who our next runs are.
Our next what?
Our next running. I mean, we already have the governor of Maryland who put testing supplies and PPE under armed guard after he finagled a private plane to fly to China and buy it.
Right.
He has already announced that he's going to be running in 2024. Yeah. I think Anthony Cuomo is set to run again. Because he did run, didn't win primaries, gave up. I think we may see him again. But the governor of California, I'm telling you, that man is not to be messed with because he's done pissed.
True.
Like that Monday call at 4 p.m., I'm quite sure he's cursing them out.
I would say so. I would say he gets put on permanent mute.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, we are not unmuting his line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get to listen in. Like, that's the number he gets, is just the listen in line. Like, not the you're gonna talk line, just the listen in line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. Like, have you ever been in that call?
Yes.
Yeah,
Live in that call.
Well, not always. Like, some of your calls, well, now with one in particular, it's gotten better. They've pulled you guys out of that listen in only mode.
Mm-hmm.
At least for here for a little while now.
Yeah.
But no, I always hated the, like, we had vendors that would pull that. And it was kind of a thing for me. Like, it really agitated me that we would have these vendor calls and they would just kind of bleh what they're doing. And half the people on this call are going, you did what?
Mm-hmm.
You did what? But because we only paid them $120,000 a year, only $120,000 a year, we were that client class. We were third class, like sleeping with the staff on the Titanic of the sinking company. Because we were down there with, steerage. No, we didn't get to have an opinion. Meanwhile, if you paid this company like $1 million plus, you got to speak on that call. And that was when you found out things like, no, the whole reason they're changing this is because this is one of the clients who took that feature, this one specific part of the database, and did their own thing with it and decided to use it totally differently. And the company changed the whole product for them. And we're just all sitting there going, but those of us who are using it the way it's supposed to be used, you just tanked our database. You just created days worth of repairs to fix this. We were just happy we had gotten to a point where they announced these instead of just leaving us hanging.
Right.
Because we had moments where they would do a new release, we'd read the release notes, that wasn't in it, and we apply the patch, and suddenly we have zombie accounts coming back. Like, suddenly, like 3 million accounts just reopened. And we're like, oh, God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always the fun part. But no, it's really highly interesting that we're starting to see some pushbacks. Of course, this weekend also, Anthony Fauci went under attack, which I think is stupid.
He's been getting a lot all the way through this.
He has, because he won't bend his opinions.
Well, he doesn't have opinions. He is a medical professional speaking from science.
Right.
He is working with best evidence. These are not just opinions. Like, and I think that's important to draw attention to, is this is not, Rush Limbaugh saying shit. This isn't just, Trump at a microphone and like words, like verbal diarrhea flows out. With no basis for that argument or no basis for that comment. This is someone who studies diseases for a living.
I know, but what I'm saying by opinions is he looks at data and interprets it. That's called an opinion on the data.
I know, but we've gotten into this opinion thing that everyone's opinion matters. No, it doesn't. Some of y'all just need to shut the hell up.
Right, but you can take data and draw multiple opinions out of the same data. Anthony Fauci's opinions, they seem to be right.
Well, it is an informed opinion. It
Right.
is based on something other than random lack of knowledge.
Right.
It is, you can do a lot with studies. You can do a lot with data and research. But you also have to have a good eye to understand what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And
Sorry, I read Emily's comment. It's
uh-huh.
very true. Yeah, it's the worst game of 99 lines.
Very much so. But, so this weekend, we did readings, we followed guidelines. It was a beautiful, fun time at Earth Magic. We done a class, followed guidelines. We even went the little extra mile on guidelines.
Yeah.
However, down in Fairmont, apparently, and this was brought to my attention earlier by Brenda, there was a church that had a speakers weekend with at least 200 exposures.
Yeah. It just keeps. I don't know. The news is writing itself anymore. Like the news of the stupid. It's not even news of the weird anymore. It's just news of the stupid. It just keeps writing itself. It's like, how many ways do you need to hear this? And I heard the argument made that much like HIV and condoms, that COVID-19 and masks, that the point was made that through HIV and condom advocates for condom use, that shaming people to wear a condom doesn't work. Being belligerent towards them doesn't work. But it's one of those moments. It's like, what do you say to someone at this point to get them there, like to help them get it? That because to me, I think we're just finding out that a good chunk of our population is kind of sociopathic, very self-interested, and doesn't give a shit about others.
I know, but, and this is the problem, and this was stated in the news conference Thursday. Governor Justice really doesn't have any jurisdiction. He can only make executive orders. He can't issue penalties.
True.
That has to go through the legislature. That is wrong.
Well, that last part, yes, is that you can create local government ordinance. Does mean you're going to have a statewide patchwork. But yes.
Yeah, but it is wrong. The state health department, your county health department, and your city departments all have authority to enter buildings, to close buildings down, to arrest people that are not following those executive orders. It's a crime and should be prosecuted. I am very glad, and I know a lot of people will be outraged about this, I'm very glad that Morgantown finally got their shit together and went, oh, we actually have power to do this? Great, let's do that.
Well, and I think most areas are trying to hold off on having to do that. That because once you go there, that's a hard place to come back from. It's like as it should be, it is a tool of last resort. Because you can look at the case of Typhoid Mary. Like, New York's been through this.
Right.
Is they literally had to get to the point of forcibly incarcerating Typhoid Mary. Because she would not follow any of their advice, and she was continuing to make people sick and kill them, as far as evidence showed. Ultimately, she was committed for the rest of her life. Oh, we're talking about all plagues in general.
Yeah, we're talking about like
Not just one.
but that's just one case. We have laws on the books from 1918 that were never took off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have law. We have given the health department, and they enjoy torturing us smokers. And I do say torturing because you can't smoke here, can't do this, can't do that. But now that they need to do their jobs and stop harassing us, they're not.
And that's where the kind of the world has been, or at least the U.S. has been for a while now, is that vice laws, which is what that is,
Mm-hmm.
are way easier for people to get behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's look at our laws criminalizing prostitution, sex work. Let's look at our laws controlling alcohol sales. Let's look at our laws concerning tobacco products. Let's look at our, there's a whole list. Adult bookstores, there are a number of laws that fall into vice.
Mm-hmm.
And culturally, we've allowed that. We've found that acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of morality policing
Mm-hmm.
seems like a good and noble and just cause, culturally at least. We've been doing it for decades, probably well over 100 years.
Yes.
That we have created laws one by one,
Mm-hmm.
surrounding trying to control behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
At least ones that a majority of people might find objectionable, or at least can't argue for,
Mm-hmm.
from any moral high ground.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to argue from moral high ground for, a sex club. Generally speaking, when you start trying to make it a morality issue, which is what these have always been about, it becomes harder to hold that position.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least that's been the case. Like, no one's gotten a good, solid moral argument out.
What the reduce of rape, reduce of drug use, reduce of criminality, reduce of prosecutions.
But ultimately, that's not what it's about. Ultimately, this argument always boils down to a Christian set of moral principles. And if you're trying to make an argument of sex situations that are outside of marriage, that are extramarital, that are premarital, that are, in any shape or form outside of one man, one woman, a ceremony, a ring, and life, you suddenly find yourself having that argument.
Right.
That's what I'm saying by morality. It's not that any of these activities are by themselves amoral in a broader sense. I'm talking about that little segment of morality that is claimed, but apparently a lot of our legislature cannot actually adhere to.
Well,
shall we just take a moment for the Schindler's List style, of every single representative who has ever been caught with their pants down? Because we could be here a while. We could fade to black, and just that list will run for a while.
Right. But what I'm saying, though, is the health department was created during the times of tuberculosis to control tuberculosis. Why they are not doing what they were designed to do is beyond me. Furthermore, we have a governor that fired their health department person, replaced them with someone who, stepped up for the community to provide a safe 4th of July, and has yet to make it on camera. Like, she's not been at any news conferences. She's not made any statements. She's not done anything.
Yeah. Well, and Alexandria, I do want to ask a question. When you're talking about a period in which people with HIV would knowingly pass it around as well, how are we talking about that? Because that can take a few different forms, and that depends upon what we're talking about. Because that ranges everywhere from early HIV/AIDS crisis, in which there was still, we were in that phase of this is what we think is going on, but we were still working to prove that. In which there were people still having unprotected sex. Then there was another phase of that in which a lot of people were intentionally becoming HIV infected because they assumed it was going to happen anyway and they wanted to take control of that. And then there's bug chasing and gift giving. And like those are very different issues to talk about. Like that falls into totally different mindsets.
Yeah.
So I want to be careful in case, I like, they all kind of apply right now. Like there's various forms of that happening. Like that's been the most traumatic part of this for me, like mentally, is that we've kind of shot through 40 years of HIV from start to now. Like finding out, exploring, denial, like the whole whatever process.
Revenge, grief. Yeah.
We have gone through the entire roadmap of like 40 years of HIV in like 4 months. People who have been legally charged and known to pass. I'm thinking SVU episode based on true stories. Oh, no. Okay. I get what you're saying now. And that's into criminal transmission. Okay. That's a little different.
Yeah.
And that's been a very contentious debate. On the one hand, you run into a limited number of situations in which there has been intentional criminal transmission. As in what you would expect in a case for those words to apply. As in, you have someone who knows they are HIV positive, who is literally ignoring any treatment options, knows they are spreading the disease, and is out for a kill a kill list, like all the people they can possibly infect, and they're doing it maliciously, cruelly, and intentionally. Then you get into what criminal transmission became, which, and again, like I get the bluntness, because it's the only way you can ever talk about that topic. Then you run into the counter version of that, which is you end up with a lot of overuse of those statutes. That criminal transmission kind of became this weird place where arrestees spitting, like an HIV positive arrestee spitting on an arresting officer, was now charged with criminal transmission, even if no transmission occurred. You ran into situations where it became this like ultimate revenge boyfriend thing. Like they break up, supposedly both parties, knew each other's statuses. They stopped using condoms somewhere in their relationship. And then in the post relationship, it kind of becomes this thing that we're going to fight this back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We got to the point where some states, if they became HIV positive, they were immediately charged with criminal transmission.
Well, now North Carolina, this is where this kind of came up for me, and where I have a problem with criminal transmission laws.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the bouncy ball for me. In North Carolina, what they started doing was, if after being diagnosed as HIV positive, you then, like say a year, 2, 3, etc., showed up with another sexually transmitted disease. Say you're sitting there and you have gono or chlamydia or whatever. Suddenly you have a new infection. They immediately prosecuted under criminal transmission without a complaining partner, under the assumption which seems fair to a degree, that you have had sex without a condom. So thereby, you have engaged in a act of criminal transmission, even if you were on meds. Even if you had a zero or an undetectable viral load. What happened in North Carolina is suddenly you watched the numbers after those cases started appearing, when it quit being about, hateful bastards running around with, a loaded weapon, like trying for a kill count, and suddenly became like consensual activity. You watched HIV testing plummet because there was a loophole in this theory. If you don't know you're HIV positive, you cannot be charged with criminal transmission. If you don't get tested, if you don't know it, then you can't be charged with it. So a lot of people quit testing. That became the bigger issue out of it, is that to protect themselves financially, to protect their lives, a lot of people quit HIV testing and refused to test and refused to know their status and continued to engage in whatever sexual behaviors they wished for. Now, what also came out of that is you started having HIV positive patients finding doctors out of state. So that if they had an uncomfortable discharge or painful urination or anything else that would indicate an STD, they started showing up anonymously out of state to get tested, to get treated, and paying for drugs out of pocket to avoid criminal transmission charges.
But they can't even enforce a 14-day isolation. However, they can put people in jail for months.
Yeah. So, yes, Alexandria, this actually was a problem before U equals U, which is what you're talking about, is that undetectable is untransmittable. I know there are still a lot of people that are uncomfortable with that idea. That, we're still like, I think there is some concerns there that because it hasn't happened doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. Sort of like there are a lot of people that are in the same place with PrEP, that just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean that it can't happen. Like, then they're still requiring you to test if you're on PrEP just for that reason. Is to establish that baseline of, okay, this is what we think is going to occur. This is what in controlled studies we can show. but we're still in that, HIV is not something you want to sit and play with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? As in, you want to be really confident before you tell someone that this is a 100%.
Mm-hmm. I'm still waiting for the shot vaccine that has supposed to have been happening for 20 years now, and I still have calluses on my feet about.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And no, that's a big part of the COVID-19 problem is we keep talking about this like we're going to have a vaccine like, 18 months. Like, hi, we've been hearing about an HIV vaccine for decades.
Well, here's the difference, and this is something that caught me off guard.
Okay.
Got a question to answer. But here's
Okay.
the difference. They've already DNA sequenced it. They've already got the retrovirus for it. They've done that within 2 months. They can't do that with AIDS, or they don't want to.
It's not that we don't know anything about HIV. 40 years of HIV science has led to a lot of information. There's tons of information.
Mm-hmm.
What we run into with HIV is that it is a very hard to stop virus. Like, it's a super weak, super stupid virus on one side of the equation. On the other side of the equation is it's also very rapid, as in the way that it works is a way that it's sort of like trying to get rid of fleas. Is it just takes one.
Mm-hmm.
Or, so it would feel. You just got to miss one little spot in your house or one little spot on your dog just doesn't want to work with the damn flea meds, or just that one little area you forget about and suddenly you start all over. Or like with lice, again, same thing. You forget one stupid thing. You have that one stupid kid that just like doesn't want something washed and hides it and whatever. And suddenly you go from a class outbreak of lice to everyone's got rid of lice to now everyone has lice again.
Mm-hmm. But and we're gonna wrap this up so I can get to the question.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Is they can close down bathhouses, they can close down clubs, they can imprison people for HIV. Okay. The health department that was designed to control a epidemic that turned into a pandemic, suddenly 100 years after their creation cannot use the same powers they enforced before.
I think a lot of this comes down to you end up having a tide of support. When you're talking about typhoid, when you're talking about a variety of diseases, or HIV is a perfect example because of the original limited community spread and the fact that the community was already hated, at least in general pop culture. It was kind of, the gay community, not really everyone's favorite. Turning the powers of the county health department, the state health department against people, the vast majority didn't give a shit and in fact appreciated it. And the rest of the group, because you will see in HIV history, there were massive fights against and very loud, angry town hall meetings against closing down bookstores, closing down bathhouses, closing down all of the places that were shut down.
Mm-hmm.
There was the same kind of, you're ruining small businesses, you're bankrupting people, you're against our rights. Why don't we get to make the choice ourselves? There was a lot of that argument.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, but okay. So getting back to your question, um, and I'm assuming that came in. Oh, that came in from YouTube, so I don't have an actual name. I have a screen name of GMSOOHOV. I don't even know where to pronounce that. Who asks, when will I meet my future husband and what will his name be?
Okay, so for these, we're actually going to pull the Black Moon astrology cards. And we'll see what they have to say.
Yes.
So looking at it, I'm going to say that your future husband will be a Virgo. I think you probably will not meet him until next year, sometime during Sagittarian time. And as far as the name, I get a D, like David. I don't feel like it'll be David. I feel like it'll be some other build on of that, but it'll start with a D. Now, if he comes out as Richard, but he goes by Dick, don't come back and hate on me.
Yep, there you go. Identity is fun. But yes, so, and Brenda brings up a point that I kind of want to go into real quick before we move on. Is on the HIV situation, is until straight people started getting it. And it was actually hemophiliacs were basically the biggest tide changers. That when you had nice, pretty, white children with hemophilia, which is a bleeding disorder that requires blood transfusions, when you suddenly had hemophiliacs, nice, affluent, pretty white people, pretty white children, nice white suburban housewives getting HIV, then yes, suddenly America started to give a shit. So, and our response was to ban men who have sex with men from donating blood, which we are still 40 years later living with. So yes.
Yep. And still living with that discrimination, even though it's
I believe, yes, Ryan White is who you're talking about. Good job. Thank you, Alexandria. You're doing great.
Okay, and she also asked the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. My siblings have been on my mind. Any chance they will be reaching out to me anytime soon?
We'll see. We're going to stick with the astrology deck. Well, it shows here void, of course. Of course, you're missing them. I feel they miss you also. Then the next card is Saturn returns, which means that there are some age issues or some aging issues. I feel they do reach out, but with the 8th house being the house of endings and beginnings, I think it'll be a different relationship than you're used to, and this may be connected to somebody's death.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry.
Well, but we've got that's a thing to definitely, in this whole COVID-19 situation talk about, is the fact that death can break up families and it can also bring them back together. And it's amazing how much petty shit can happen when someone dies. Divides families up, like, so-and-so took mom's, silverware, and now the whole family is going to, like, go crazy over this, and we're never going to talk to each other again. And then other times, with age and time and passage, you start seeing people in a different light, and you start caring about the like this crap was stupid. Why did we do this? Why did we act like this? Like, you know.
Yeah. And I also feel like in general with it and just the whole situation, it just feels like a very nervous conversation to begin with. I know that you guys weren't raised together, and she says that she didn't know them until a couple of years ago. But I think that this whole COVID thing is kind of pulling things together, making people reevaluate families and lives and all that. But at the same time, it's going to change our dynamics in a lot of ways. The way we view education, the way we view social structures, family structures are changing. And I think that, for a time, we may start seeing the resurgence of family things and family connection and finding simple connections. I know for one thing that we've started doing that I'm kind of liking is the lunch or dinner in the park.
Lovely place to have lunch and dinner.
Yep.
Breakfast as well. That has been a wonderful park issue, or a wonderful place to have a meal. Sorry, things that happen when I try to read and talk at the same time. But yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It is a small world, right? Because Alexandria is pointing out her brother is in the military, and my husband has gone right now for training with someone I believe works with my brother. Like, small world.
Right. Very small world. And that's the way the universe works, to start cramming people together and finding connections with them when they're wanting to work on building that energy together. I see that all the time when I look at soulmate relationships, and they would have known everybody. Well, we even had that when it's like, oh, I knew that one. I know that one. Do you know this one? Yeah, I know that one.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know. I was thinking about this movie earlier today, and I just wanted to double check the title before I said it. So that's what I was typing. But there was this great movie years ago, stars Glenn Close, called Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her. Really kind of interesting look at that sometimes 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon concept. Of, like, you don't realize how everyone's lives are interacting with each other. And, like, what happened to this person is happening in a way to this person and the next person and the next. And how all these things influence and flow together.
Right.
And yeah, that does happen.
Right. I mean, we lived in complexes right beside each other. You went to school where I used to work at a bar called College. It was called College. And it's like, why did you not just pay a cover? We could have saved a lot of time here.
I know. Well, but there's so many things there, is that, we were on the same dating sites. We were, had friends in common, or at least knew people in common, I guess is the better version. I had tons of friends that went to that bar. I didn't pay cover charges because I never got my money's worth. What? I can't, like, I was poor. Like, can I just point out, I was living off of like $70 a month from my grandmother, and I think roughly $250 or $240, whatever it was, of work study money. So for like $330 a month, somewhere in there, $320 a month, that's what my life was on. Like, that was like food and car insurance and cigarettes and school supplies and gas and yeah. And this whole mothering personality thing I got going on ain't new. It didn't just like pop up like 5 years ago. It's not like a low T event or something. It's literally like been with me my entire life. So I stretched my $320 to make sure everyone was like fed and comforted and had everything they needed, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, took friends out to restaurants because they were having a bad time. Not that I didn't have friends that did the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I like Brenda's comment.
I don't know. And that's a hard thing to say, but honestly, I don't know. Anyone familiar with Doctor Who might remember an episode in which River Song was talking about, have you ever seen a picture of someone from before you met them and you know it's them, but they're not them? Like, that's not the person you know.
Mm-hmm.
In like talking about that, I don't know that at that time, if we had met, I don't, I think that would have probably been the beginning and end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we were in totally different places. Like, we were in the same physical location, but life wise, we were in totally different places.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have worked out, and I don't know that it would have been a good thing. And I think it may have been like, the forever closed door kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That I think we both would have had massive issues with we were then.
I don't know.
Like, I don't know, I was weirdly uptight in college,
Uh-huh.
but I had so many things going on, and I was processing mom's death and like
Mm-hmm.
trying to survive, and I was going through a like, you know, phase. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that we would have really gotten along well.
Depending.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on whether you caught me on a work night or if I was just a hanging night.
Okay.
Those are two. It's kind of like you say I have Aeson mode. I used to have Miss Raven mode, and it's a totally different personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know. I didn't have like, I never really got big into drag shows. That was the other part, is there was a really long time there, like, I don't know, drag just, I don't know, I didn't identify, I didn't really get it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really like, and I like, it's not that I didn't know anyone doing drag. I knew a few people that did drag, but I don't know, like, personality wise, I was just kind of like, okay, whatevs,
Mm-hmm.
not harming anyone, and it makes you happy. Go with God, like, whatever, not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not there, I'm not interested. You know,
That is on the after plague vacation list is Provincetown.
yes.
Um,
And it'll be a first time for you. It'll actually be a return for me.
mm-hmm. And it's going to be a combination trip because the way I look at it is if I'm going up north, I'm going to hit all my important spots. I'm going to go to Boston. I'm going to go to Salem, of course. There's a few people I want to stop up, see, give a hug to because they've been great. And a few others I've got a peace of mind waiting on. And then I'm going to Provincetown and enjoying the weekend. And no, there will not be shows that weekend, that week. There probably will not be social media that week unless it's pre-planned.
But yeah, no, I've been to Provincetown once, and we'll just go ahead and talk about this real quick. I was going through a lot my last year of college, and kind of having this sort of, like, for all the uptight years, I finally hit my last year of college, and I was just like, fuck you, fuck everyone, fuck this. I'm tired of like being there for everyone. I've got too much on me. I kind of like went crazy for a little bit. And I literally, no joke, what had been talking to a guy online for like 2 weeks who had just gotten out of a relationship. Ironically, his one and only previous relationship was with someone named Joe. And they had planned to go for Bear Week. And he had already bought the tickets or whatever, like paid for the trip for 2 people. So 2 weeks into talking to a guy online, I literally let him buy me a plane ticket, and I got on a plane without telling anyone where I was going, what I was doing, when I'd be back, how to get in touch with me. I hopped on a plane. I flew to Boston Logan International Airport, met a dude, and went to Provincetown for the weekend.
Mm-hmm. We've all done it.
Well, but that was like probably the worst. Like that was the one even I look back and went, in terms of bad life choices, that could have gone really bad.
It isn't like you packed enough to fit into the trunk of a 1987 Bonneville, got in the car and drove up to Ohio and just started a new life because you got a good job interview.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the flip side, I did. The only thing that made me like okay with this, or like makes me feel okay with the situation, was I did require him to have a full itinerary. So like the trip up and the flight back, like both of those had to exist, like, and non-refundable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not a ticket you can cash out. Like, that was my biggest thing, was like, okay, before I do this. That was the only thing I did, though, that was even remotely like, I might live through this experience.
See, I've had weird and wild things happen in my life. Both times I moved out of state, I had no plans for it. I just went and did it.
Yeah, Prachi, it is a reading session. We do a lot of conversation when we don't have questions. So definitely feel free, pop your question in. And once we finish a topic, we will definitely answer your question. Make sure to include your birthday.
Yeah. But, both times when I moved to Ohio, it was a couple suitcases and a computer. When I moved to North Carolina, it was one of those army sacks. Literally, that's all it took.
Hello and welcome. I didn't think I'd seen the name before. So, yes, hello and welcome. Oh, thank you for joining us. But no, well, and see the end of that relationship. Let me fast forward. That relationship did not last, obviously.
Do the ever?
Obviously. There were so many things wrong with that relationship, but ultimately, at the end of it, I got broken up with through Instant Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, 2 weeks after Valentine's Day. After being ignored on Valentine's Day. I still may have some issues with that. Let's, not dig into that tonight. But there was this whole point in which a friend of mine, like, I was so, like, hurt in that breakup. Part of me wanted to drive up there because, like, he wouldn't answer the phone. Like, I got a breakup message, and then the fucking coward would not answer the phone. Part of me wanted to drive up there and be like, no, we're having this conversation right now. And I actually had a wonderful friend who was like, you know what? Take my car. Because I'm like, my car will not make it. I cannot afford a plane ticket. I'm not even sure I've got gas money to make it all the way up there. And she was like, here's money and my car keys. Like, do what you want to do. And I really had to set with that, one, amazing friend. But two, I was like, but what do I do once I get up there? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to drive to New Hampshire, technically, and have this out. because I don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to be like, okay, awesome friend who let me use your car? Small problem. I don't know how I'm getting home, or I'm not coming back. Like you imagine that movie moment where like everything comes together and whatever, you know.
And he's freezing. Tick tock. Let's see where it goes. While he's freezing.
Like video. There we go. We're back. Looks like our internet connection may have been resetting. If you've been hearing us the last minute or so, yay. If not, welcome back.
And right, let's take our question.
Oh, I had an amazing time on the trip. So Prachi asks, so I'm a vet. Do you see me being a good healer and successful as I'm applied for overseas? I'm assuming good. GUD. I think just meant.
We'll take that as good. Yeah. And it's September 18th, 1986 is the birth date. Let's make the lawyers happy.
Okay. I'm figuring it's in the chat. As long as they post it, I'm not reading it.
Actually, yeah. But also see yourself as being able to be reinvented, because, we have Mercury in retrograde, so that's, of course, is reinvention. Then, if you're asking about your success, Jupiter comes up, abundance. Yes, you'll be very successful, very happy with applying overseas. And, then your other card is Taurus, and that tells me that you're a very big person of I have or I have done, and I feel like that's going to be important. So please be, as you're applying overseas, boosting about what you have done, where you have been, and how you have done that. If you got vet of the town or best vet in town, don't care how small it is, make sure you boast about it.
Okay, I was taking vet a different direction.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I have that problem sometimes. I was reading that as veteran, not veterinarian.
Veterinarian, and she's European.
Ah, okay. But yeah. So awesome.
Yeah, so there is a new book that has we have. Oh, you're a gold medalist. Cool. So yeah, be bragging a little bit about that. There's a new book out about our favorite group of Cheeto that has been a lot of work, a lot of court battles over, actually.
Well, that seems to be everything about Trump is a court battle. So and books especially. And right now we are seeing a flurry of books coming out, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've got Mary Trump with her what sounds to be amazing book. Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. She is a PhD in psychology, I do believe it is. So she is actually deconstructing the mental health of Trump. Not that there's many pieces of his mental health left. Yeah, that's where we're going. And then we also turn around, we have John Bolton, who has a book out, The Room Where It Happened, White House memoir. I think we all kind of I don't know, I think his book kind of got sidetracked.
Well, I think it got kind of hidden because we had other things going on. Of course, it falls out of news media. It seems like every time Trump loses a battle, it falls out of news media. And I'm like, what's he covering up? What's he hiding? What's he trying to hide?
Well, I think a lot of it is coming down to I see that's where I start having problems. Is I don't even know that it's like a legitimate trying to hide things. It's just there might be something negative said at all. Like it could be as bad as like he's losing his hair. Like no shit, everyone knows this. But for Trump especially, it seems like that's a criticism and therefore bad. Like should be illegal. How do I suppress it? How do I sue it away?
But I think it's really interesting to see Mary Trump's book come out. This is one I actually may get on Audible and listen to. Normally not a political reader, but this one sounds like
Oh yeah. Well, I don't think and here's the thing. I don't know that anyone's going to learn anything super new. I think we're all in the category right now. We know he's mentally unstable and was raised by narcissistic parents and had a, like you could sit there and potentially make the excuse he had a horrible childhood that turned him into the monster he is. But and then when you go into John Bolton's book, you kind of like, we are all very aware at this point he is totally clueless what he's doing. Like, he's just like hearing words and saying things.
Right.
And doesn't even care to be fully informed enough to have an opinion.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know that we're going to learn anything new. Like nothing super new. Or anything shocking, really. I think, though, it's just like all of these books are going to be like accumulating evidence.
Right. But
maybe not like
interesting that it's being released now.
Yeah. Well, of course it's being released now. Like publishers ain't stupid. They want to make as much money off these books as they can. Like they are trying to get everything ready for November. They know what this year is. It's a re-election year. This is when people want to see this.
Let me see.
Oh, here we go.
This is where you're getting a reading on. Step away from my personal opinions on. Let the cards do the talking.
There we go.
All right. So let's see. Will Trump be reelected as president? And then after this, I'll share something else about the whole situation. All right, here we go. Of course, we know he has the desire to be reelected.
Mika makes a good point.
Which talks about the benefits and him focusing on what he can get out of it. However, we have the Grand Tran, which is the blessing card, which for the Americas would be that, possibly he will not be. And the final outcome card is Sagittarian, which means we will see. And seeing all truth. So I do think that there is going to be some more scandals coming out, some more information that may keep him from being reelected. Now, I'm not in the frying pan. I'm not in the frying pan at all. But I am going to say that there are a number of psychics that have predicted that he may not make it to reelection. A number of them have wrote blogs, both internationally, that they are looking at the astrology. They are looking at visions they're getting. I've heard everything from a heart attack to impeachment since day one of this guy being reelected. This guy being elected. If he gets reelected, he may not live out his term. I have not seen as much scuttlebucket as everything pulling together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and it's kind of a very long, sorted issue.
Yeah.
But yeah. Hi, Isabella. Let's go ahead and get your question in, and we'll be happy to answer. Because we do have your birthday, maybe. No.
Yeah, we have the birth date. We just don't have the question.
Well, I don't know that. There we go. Thank you. All righty. I don't know. Like, quite frankly, like, Trump just seems like a cockroach in general. Like, he keeps surviving shit that he shouldn't. Like, the fact that he's gone through this much of COVID-19 without a mask and being a dumbass.
Again, but he's protected very closely, and a lot of things are kind of we've wrapped them in bubble wrap. That's not surprising. What I do find interesting, however, is he has been to Walter Reed now 3 times for something medical, and there has been no release of it. However, if Bush had a BP, blood pressure elevation, there was a 2-page article in the New York Times.
I don't know. Part of me thinks this is like our most methed up president right now. Like, something tells me, like, I don't know what it is. There's just something about like the last few months. I feel like he's propped up. Like, I don't know. Have you ever seen someone that just looks like they are just like they got pulled out of bed for an event, hemmed up, and like thrown on stage? Like, go out, do your thing, and then we'll let you collapse.
Yeah. See it quite often. I think he's on Aerosef. I really think he is.
It's possible. I don't know.
He just has that glassy look in his eyes way too much, and I know it's not contacts. We all know he wears glasses.
Yeah.
That's why the teleprompter is in the back of the room.
See? But, it's been interesting.
Isabella, we're waiting for your question, honey.
Yeah. So, but, Alexandria, I don't think that we've got a vaccine or a medication that's actually working. Now, if he is taking other stuff, I don't know. I don't know if maybe that's what like his doctors are doing to get him to take shit he needs to be on. Is saying, oh, this will fix your, this will prevent COVID-19. Take this, like exploit the stupid. But anyway, so Isabella has a specific question. And that's, if my next spiritual guide is already in my realm, or is he still waiting for me to complete my tasks? And let her know if she needs to explain her question more.
I don't think she needs to explain it more.
Okay.
So, for this, I'm actually going to pull a different deck, because this really doesn't... The Black Moon Astrology is great, but let's go ahead and use the vibrational energy cards.
Okay. That's typically known as the Oracle deck, right?
Yeah.
Which would make sense. This is kind of a beautiful thing.
The first one is time lapse. The second card there is creative expression, and the third card there is combustion. So let's break it down. I don't feel like he's in your guide range yet. He will be after you complete your task, and I feel like this is either a creative task or learning a new skill that you'll need to help communicate with him.
Okay. Well, let us know if he needs to explain that answer more.
Yeah. I actually like flipping decks. Normally I just stick to the tarot, but I think I'm going to start pulling out my toys.
Well, it's fun to play with.
Yeah.
And sometimes different questions get better answers with different decks.
They do.
Totally got it. Like, nailed it. Understand it perfectly.
Awesome.
So, yay.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it that you were able to get that. I love questions like that too. Those are more questions that I was trained to read. But I like the other ones, like when's he going to call, and the gossipy ones David just loves to death. He loves the gossip about people. So, and I'm kind of glad that Alexander has been in with us tonight because I have the ISIS agency rescinded their order on um, international students.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
because we were, well, because that's been a long-term issue of online education not qualifying for visa status.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that for a long time there, I've kind of supported that idea. One, I think we're abusing the H-1B visa program a lot already.
Mm-hmm.
To basically hire people for less money,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of ignoring U.S. citizens to begin with. That if you've gone through the U.S. education system, if you have gone to college in the States, you have paid all this money out. And there's, culturally an expected, or there used to be, kind of an expected return on investment there. There was an idea of what this should pay. And a lot of the H-1B visa program has been about trying to find it cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your cost cutter version of an employee.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'll hire you, we'll bring you in, you'll enroll in classes, we'll exploit you. So yeah. And I believe that's the H-1B visa. I never was good with visas. Just double checking that because I feel like I got that wrong.
Yeah. H-1B is the work visa. Student visa is the one for students. It's the S1.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's
I
okay.
always get that wrong. But I have problems with both programs. And
Right.
that's ultimately the issue.
Right.
Is that we tend to, because it tends to be less of, I'm not saying there are not students that are here legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I totally get that. I have known international students. It is a wonderful opportunity. But then again, there are other situations in which they're kind of being recruited. It's a long-term plan to hire a less expensive employee.
Right.
It's kind of the inverse of the program that I dealt with when I was working in college.
Mm-hmm.
We did an international student program that sent over students that had already been recruited by a company. They have a very tailored through a local college program that ends up sending them to the U.S., to Greensboro, North Carolina, of all places, for very specific classes and training.
Mm-hmm.
And then they return to Germany and they already have a job. While they're enrolled in education, they basically have a stipend that pays for everything.
Right.
They're already receiving an income.
Right. And that's the way Germany works. This is one that I've been very much avidly wishing that the U.S. would get on board with.
Well, yes, and if we were doing it in that direction, that I'm perfectly fine with that. Expose students to other cultures. Please help, start paying students from the beginning of their education.
Right.
And hire people you plan to keep for 30, 40, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's not anywhere close to what we're doing or how the system's being used.
Right.
In a lot of cases. It's coming from the other direction, is how do we hire the cheapest person for the job, recruit internationally someone who is showing aptitude, bring them here to the U.S., push them through a specific education, and then hire them into the H-1B visa program.
Mm-hmm. However, what I'm saying is in Germany, when you're a high school student, and there was big news today about in Japan, when you're a high school student, you take a test. And it shows what your skills and your qualities are for aptitude and successful career placement, interest in successful career placement, and then companies hire you right then and there, and then the government helps and the companies help pay for your education.
Right. Well, and we do this in the U.S. too. Like, I did the aptitude test. My siblings get an aptitude test.
Right.
The
but how many companies contacted you 2 weeks later for an interview because you are
flipping zero. No one cared. Flipping zero. No one cared.
Right. In Germany, that's quite opposite.
Right. The biggest problem that, at least when I took it, and granted, that has been over 20 years ago. The biggest problem when I took it is that test was built around occupations that no longer existed.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very outdated test.
Mm-hmm.
That had a lot of biases.
Mm-hmm.
And that had been pointed out multiple times, is that, if you were, because I believe it was, the test was set up that it gender differentiated.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were a woman, you would be told you should become a nurse. If you were a man, you were told you should become a doctor, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, it had a lot of gender stereotyping of careers and a lot of limiters, especially for women. But a lot of it was also just, it was very hard to interpret. It's like they required you to take it, but then they didn't do anything with it, at least not mine. Like, it's like, okay, here's your aptitude test results. And that was the end of it.
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know. I don't really think that people should be pigeonholed necessarily. I think it's good information to have. But I also think that sometimes it may skew a little. Is that it may not embrace the understanding of what the jobs are. Or, like, the categories were very generic.
Right.
It's like they were very almost specific. As in, it didn't really open up for, like, a world of diversity. As in, like, sometimes maybe that's not your exact thing, but you can bring that, like, aptitude or ability to a different position. And, that maybe we have some serious misunderstandings of what aptitudes you need to be in certain fields. That was all my feelings on it. But Mika asks, do you want birth dates all along?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2/20/82. Why does it seem like I can't get along with people, or they don't like me, when I want the opposite?
Okay. So the first card with this is the air element. It's communication. And of course we have Venus with love, because you do love people. But we have Leo with I will. So this shows me that you're coming on or trying too hard. Like, you're trying to be friends with everybody. You want people to like you. You want to get along with people. But you're coming on like really strong cologne, because you're doing all the work. And then when you turn back and go, okay, it's your turn to do something, they're like, oh no, I don't want to do anything. So my suggestion would be to do the opposite. Don't try to make people like you. Be you. Be who you are. And if they like you, great. If they don't, guess what? There's other ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a wide, divergent sea of people in the universe.
Yep. And if they aren't biochemically connected to you, treat them like cheap cologne and put them on the back shelf.
Alrighty, that's an interesting sentence. Okay. Alrighty. Sometimes you say stuff. But okay.
Yeah. But, I think that we, as a country, need to embrace online learning. And I'm not talking about Phoenix University. I'm talking about regular colleges. regular things being more online based. There is no reason for a student to have to fly to their class in California when they can sit here in West Virginia and get the UC Berkeley classes.
Mm-hmm.
I have took classes from Scotland, never had to be there. I have took classes from England. A lot of my metaphysical classes are only offered in England. Never had to go there. Meet the teacher online. He has a lovely video. She has a lovely video. Work through, do the classwork, complete the projects.
Mm-hmm.
Not hard. There's very little in a traditional classroom setting that cannot be done online unless you have severe needs or severe disabilities. Those are different.
Well, but do you think there might be issues for some people with actually I know I've run into issues in a class before where I just struggled with a concept.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't get there with it.
Mm-hmm.
The base material didn't work for me. And I needed a little extra there.
Right.
It's not one of my core subjects. It wasn't one of my core things. It was an ancillary thing. And I'm just struggling with one concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I just need 30 minutes for someone, the professor typically, or a TA, or someone, I need resources. And I think that for me, that's been the missing component of online classes.
Okay.
That a lot of them are built around exactly what you're talking about. Is that you're going to show up, you're going to sit there, you're going to hear the material, you're going to see the PowerPoint, you are going to do the lab, you are going to whatever, and spark, idea, understanding, got it.
Right.
And that's true for a lot of people for a lot of things. But then there's sometimes just that one concept that it's a vital component of everything after it. And if you don't get it, you're lost from here on. You have to get this concept. And I've run into those, and I've struggled for a couple of weeks because I don't get this thing back here. And I've got to go in, and someone's got to pull out the pots and pans and everything in the toolbox to okay, well, how about if I do it this way, or say it this way, or explain it this way? And we have to go through a few things. And then it's oh, I got it now.
Right.
And that's been my biggest concern. And I think that's a big concern that they're trying to address with ideas of not necessarily, that if we do online classes for elementary, middle school, and high school students come this fall, is because in that part of our education, there's a lot of foundational material.
Right.
That if you miss this concept, if you don't get this thing, you're going to be lost for everything after it.
But, and Shannon even brings this up, in every online course that I take, there is always one-on-one time with the instructor. Matter of fact, my life coaching course, it required one-on-one time with the instructor.
Which is great. Unfortunately, I went through a traditional college. I took, I think, one legitimately online class. And it was exactly what you said in the beginning, though, is watch the material, do the quiz, get the grade. That's it. Bam, 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 and done. And that's all you had to do. And our biggest impediment for that class was that you couldn't do all of the material at once. You had to wait until it released. You had a specific date that this will be available, that you can even look at it. And then it was available until this date, and if you didn't do it in that time, you're screwed.
Right.
Now take the quiz and move on with your life.
Right.
And there wasn't any option really. Like you could email, but it was like there was no like in-person sessions, there was no office hours, there was nothing there.
Right.
For like, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. Thankfully, it was not a difficult course. It wasn't something that changed my life. It was one of those weirdo college credits that they kind of specifically designed like for an online class, or that was easily teachable as an online class. And other than the struggle of like getting really into like part of the content and being like, okay, can I just knock this out? Because I'm typically a read ahead kind of person. Like, you know, let me just go ahead and while I'm on a roll, like, I'm rolling with it. I got this. Let me just keep moving so that I continue this you know process. But yeah, there was I don't know. I never have run into that online class where you had legitimate support.
I've had in a number of courses, including my doctorate program. So,
Okay.
you know, believe me, my doctorate program, which I finished last year, but still have to get the diploma. Yeah, and then you can officially call me Dr. Dick. But anyhow,
yes. Anyone who doesn't get the reference has never watched Sybil. I like the minute I was There's a whole long story there, but short version is once he gets that piece of paper, he becomes Dr. Dick.
But I think that we need to embrace online learning. I think we need to embrace homework, work from home, because there's a lot of office jobs, i.e. the collector's job, i.e. a lot of other jobs. There's no reason that they cannot be done from your desk in your dining room or your desk in your home office. And I think these are cultural norms that need to be embraced because they've been embraced everywhere else.
Well, and a lot of it has centered around companies being afraid people won't work, that they'll be less productive, that they will be less controlled, that they will be less professional, that they won't like I've noticed businesses have a lot of fears around losing the ability to shove someone in a box.
Yep.
Like,
well, but here's the other thing. Just looking at one change over this past 2 months, you know, one of my networks designed an app that works on my phone. Literally, I don't have to go to the website unless I got to do housekeeping. My productivity on that site has went over the moon.
Yeah. Well, because without needing, you know, the traditional computer setup and internet and all the things that go along with that and being in a location where you can use a laptop, yada, yada, yada. When you remove that, you start to have more like available time. And they also, with that, seem to stop penalizing you with like a login lag.
Yeah.
Because that was the biggest like impediment you ran into to like trying to use short spaces of time to work was that you seemed to get penalized for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you logged in and then there was this 30-minute lag before you would take your first whatever. Call, chat, yada.
Yeah.
So yeah. With that one is like that immediately just removed that as an option. It's like, well, I've got 45 minutes here. I could take like 45 minutes. I could do like 3 or 4, you know, chats or calls or whatever. Except there's a 30-minute lag, and by the time I get in, I'm going to take like 1, maybe 2. And then I got to fight to get out.
Right.
Because that was the flip side of the coin is like, and then sometimes getting out of that system was, a street fight to get the system to be like, no, really.
Yeah.
I can't do this now. Stop calling me. Do what now?
I need to go to sleep. I need to get on air.
Yeah. I need to be somewhere. I have a doctor's appointment. I have a life. I need to use the toilet. And that was the other portion of the problem. And I know this is like a little TMI here, but when you were stuck to that computer for taking chats, in a lot of ways, you couldn't do anything else.
Right.
And you were just at the whim of these networks for when you might possibly finally get a bathroom break. When you might finally possibly get to go get a coffee, like go refill your coffee mug.
At one point, I thought about putting my coffee pot in here. If I could figure out a way to keep my creamer cold, it would have been.
Yeah, really. Well, micro fridge, but yeah. But no,
I've got all your stuff behind me.
Yeah, really. But under the desk, that's where it goes. But no, like being in that situation, it does mean you have to kind of have a more rigid time period that is dedicated to this.
Right.
Instead of being able to go, hey, I got a few minutes. I'm early for a doctor's appointment, or, I'm waiting on whatever. To be able to turn it on and say, okay, I'll do this for a few minutes.
Right.
Which is one of those things that when you talk about productivity is sometimes being able to knock stuff out in a few minutes instead of having that fixed, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, with a 1 hour lunch break, blah, 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 thing going on. Because I do know that once I had the ability to answer email on my phone, which was my personal phone, I paid for the service and everything, and apparently paid for the ability to get abused. But once I was getting emails from work on a device that I could take anywhere, a large part of my last of working with that company, with the debt recovery agency, was responding to people, and just having that ability sometimes to be on lunch and not and be able to head a client off at the pass and answer their very important question, but very easy to answer. I don't need to look at anything. I can tell them what's going on, just to be able to sit there and type that really quick instead of getting the emergency phone call of such and such client is on the phone and they want to talk to you now. Well, there went my lunch.
Right.
I got to shoot back to the office to appease this client, and then what do you do with that?
Well, Mika, that's a good question, because we're actually both different.
Yeah, well, we are different. We're very different.
I am a multitasker with 40 different things running in at the same time.
I can't stand that situation. I am definitely I am serial. I am totally serial. It is one thing and then another and another and another. Yeah. With minor exceptions. It depends a lot upon what I'm doing.
Right.
There are some things I can do multiple things at the same time. That's typically things that results and habit, results aren't important, and habit is it's a thing I can do in my sleep. Those are things I can sometimes do, all at once.
Right. Me, I'm forever the multitasker. I will have the washer running, cooking dinner, working on an email reading, taking chats from a client, and planning my next web post, all in the same micro breath.
Yeah.
There's a reason I have 6 guides. It's because they all get to work.
Yeah. But no, for me, it's typically a linear thing. It's
Mhm.
like it's just like one after another. And I interrupt horribly. And that was like a key warning for our relationship in the beginning was like, look, I don't interrupt well. Like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to tell you now, I'm going to set you up for this. I do not interrupt well. Like,
Mhm.
if I am locked into something, I don't come out of that happy
Mhm.
because it's kind of like I create a micro world, like a little
Mhm.
bubble world, and
Mhm.
I'm in it. And the only thing that exists is that thing.
Mhm.
And like the phone ringing or, chat messages popping all over the place or people running in and out, I start having issues with. Like I have that demand my attention.
Mhm.
Um, I have trouble with that,
Right.
and I don't come out happy.
And I don't. I can literally have 4 different conversations running um, at the
And
same
not care
time.
that the phone's ringing and the UPS guy's at the front door and the dog needs to go out and
Yeah,
you know.
I can do it all. I can let the dog out, answer the UPS dude, go flip the eggs, whatever, all at the same time. But that's because that's how I've been built.
Well, whereas I have issues walking in the house with groceries, car keys, and someone asking me anything.
Right.
Like I'll tell you 3 to 1, you are gonna find my keys in the freezer later.
Yep.
Like that is what will happen.
Uh-huh.
I've done that so many times in my life that when someone's like, I can't find my keys, my first response is check the freezer.
Yep.
And
So
there's a reason. It's because you came in, your hands were full, you're still holding keys, you're trying to get stuff out of a bag. And if you're like me, your first priority is get the frozen stuff back in the friggin' freezer.
mm-hmm.
So where do your keys get laid down? Somewhere around the fridge.
Mm-hmm. But no, great question because there are different types. I can multitask. He can't. I've worked in, one of my first jobs was taking care of 79 people at one time.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to multitask a lot and be like, okay, prioritize what needs most focus at this moment, what can wait a second, and what do I need to take care of. I'm also highly organized. Like I have a planner, I have everything in when my world is in perfect order, everything has a place for it. So I'm cutting down on time that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that because there are a lot of differences we've negotiated through.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That'll
There
be a good topic to talk into. All right, guys, we're going on 2 hours. We normally try to keep it around an hour and a half, but if you stuck through this way, thank you very much. We do
Change
want.
the scroller.
I will.
Thank you. And we do want to thank Beverly Walker and the Crystal Lotus Shop for being Patreon supporters. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, please visit pcspnetwork.com. You can also find other great content and information about us there.
Yep. And how to get readings, how to
Mm-hmm.
engage with Joe on computer projects or website projects. Social media and marketing is my department. I'm also the project manager for Mystic PCs. And, of course, lead Sleggy for Aeson Knight.
Oh, let's not go with the list.
Yeah, okay.
He
Yeah,
does
I have like
stuff.
4 business cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Or should. We've only ordered you 2.
I should have a life coaching one, a project manager one, a psychic one, and a mediumship one.
Yeah, we combined some of those together. It's okay.
Yeah. But guys, have a great night. Be safe. Don't be stupid. Wear a mask. And take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.